r/ask Reddit. What's the most wholesome thing a stranger has done for you? There's a spot in the building I work at that nobody wants to work in. It's the coldest area in the building because there's an opening that doesn't close and doesn't have heat, so you can't even eat food safely because the wind will blow it away. I was moved from where I usually am and wasn't prepared for how cold it would be there. I could barely handle money because my fingers felt frozen. A customer noticed how cold it was and without even asking if I was cold, he took off his gloves and gave them to me. I have no idea what his name was, but it was the most thoughtful thing a complete stranger has ever done for me. I still have the gloves too. A homeless man stole a glove out of my friend's pocket and ran. My friend threw the other glove after him, yelling, "Just take it." Seriously, I will give it away if they just ask. I often end up with an extra pair of mismatched gloves because I'll usually lose one glove on the sardine cans that are buses in my city. Gave a pair to the homeless dude outside the laundromat, and he legitimately asked me what he was supposed to do with two different colored gloves. They were the same brand, from the same store. I was too baffled to respond, just had to walk away at that point. The guy next to me on a plane once woke me up when the flight attendant came around with ice cream and got an ice cream so that I could have too. I'll never forget that man. I have done this for someone before, except the person asleep next to me was my husband, and I didn't wake him up, and I ate his ice cream. An airline that offers ice cream? What kind of airline do you fly? That sounds disastrous and awesome. I think it was KLM, but I'm not certain. It was delicious. They had some sort of tasty pear cakes one time I flew with them too. He helped me change a flat tire, recommended a place for me to go to the next day to get it checked out. When I got there the next morning, he had stopped by to drop off his business card and to tell them to take good care of my vehicle. When they called me to tell me that the car was ready, they also told me that he had paid for the new tire. Still can't believe it. You don't get people who do that for someone they have never met before. I'm a single, childless guy in my 50s. I'll never have kids or a family. I don't know if it's cultural or biological or some alchemy of the two, but sometimes I want to take care of someone. Doing a simple good deed, stealing from Yiddish, a mitzvah, just to help someone out make me feel good on a very fundamental level. For a moment I read this as your good deed was thieving from Yiddish people, lol. I worked at a gas station at the time. I'd gotten myself a pretty large burn on one arm, helping someone lift a grill after it had been used, and he dropped it without warning. A customer saw my arm, bought her stuff and came back 5 minutes later. She'd gotten me an aloe vera plant so I could break off pieces of it and rub on my burn. I thought that was pretty wholesome. Might be because I'm obsessed with plants, but this one made me smile a lot. Plants noises. When I was around 17, I got in my first car accident. It was snowing and very icy, and I was driving home from work. It was evening, but still fairly light because the snow reflected a decent amount of light from the street lamps. I slid on the ice and lost some control of my car. I hit the one in front of me, not super hard, but enough to dent their back bumper and scratch my front bumper. Since it was my first accident, I sort of uncontrollably panicked and started crying even though it wasn't that bad. We pulled over and put our lights on. An older couple, probably in their 60s, got out of the car and assessed the damage. I got out, crying and profusely apologizing. The wife immediately was like, "Oh honey, is this your first car accident?" and gave me a little half hug. She asked her husband to grab her purse and got me some tissues from it to wipe away my tears. She said it was no big deal at all, just some scratches. She understood it was a true accident and that I hadn't been driving recklessly. Even though I hit them and dented their car, they took care of me and I will never forget it. It's kind of fresh in my mind right now because my daughter is going through driver's training. Of course I hope she never gets in an accident, but if she does I hope she is lucky enough to receive the same understanding from someone. Similar story for me, but I was a little older, 19 years old. I was driving in the left lane on the highway and I saw a car sitting in the median waiting to pull out into traffic. Well, they didn't wait and pulled out right in front of me. I'm going 55 mph. At the last second, I quickly check my right mirror and swerve into the right lane. My driver's side mirror scrapes along the passenger side of their car and snaps both our mirrors off. We both pull over and this elderly couple gets out. They both seem really confused and they make a phone call. I call my parents and the police and my parents are on their way. A few minutes later, another car pulls up and this younger woman, maybe late 30s, gets out. She asks me what happened and I explain. I'm in tears at this point, and she just hugs me and says I'm so sorry. Neither of them are supposed to drive anymore. Are you okay? Thank you for not hitting my parents. She was so kind and assured me it was okay and not my fault. Thankfully insurance agreed. The damage was minor, but when I think back, had I not swerved, I could have T-boned the old lady in the passenger seat. I was sitting alone at the cafeteria and a teacher came up to me and gave me food that she bought for me. I didn't know who she was. She has never taught me. Had this happened to me in grad school, we were a bunch of weak ass looking guys, and the coffee cups surrounding our study table were a clear testament to a long night. A professor just came by early morning and dropped off some fresh croissants, gave us a winning smile and left without a word. I can still remember the sense of gratitude we felt. Dude was in the same spot when he was your age and respects the grind, I'm sure. Professor here, 100%. It's basically our unwritten duty to buy the lab coffee supply, occasionally bring donuts, etc. Or at least my advisor always did those things back in grad school, so now I do too. In college, flying to visit my father for spring break. The airport was 45 minutes away from campus and I didn't have a car. After my ride left, the flight was delayed until the next day, and the airline said that because I lived nearby I didn't qualify for a hotel room for the night. A lovely couple gave me their hotel room voucher, as they decided to drive through the night instead. It helped me out when I was in a really tight spot. That was really cool of them and of you to visit family during spring break. I think the key thing here is the airport was 45 minutes away from campus by car. Basing those decisions on geography when not everyone has equal access to transport is a bizarre idea. Not equitable at all. It was great of those people to help you though. Shame they had to be put in that position. Actually it was a redditor. I was a really poor college student. I worked 20 hours a week, but got cut back to 10 hours. Rent also increased. I didn't qualify for low income aid like food stamps because grants for tuition at school counts as income. It's dumb. I had a hard time affording groceries and even meat. My meals consisted of eating cucumbers and bananas and rice crackers. I had broth and pasta and stuff. But I was getting way thinner. I'm already a short and skinny girl at under 100 pounds. And was getting skinnier and way weaker. Like walking upstairs hurt and would leave me feeling exhausted. We met up and he bought me groceries, lots of meat, and even cooked for me. When I took the first bite of the steak he cooked I literally cried and embarrassed myself. He would send me every now and then a delivery of Amazon groceries. I'm still in touch with that person and very grateful. It was a really hard time in my life. This dude is going straight to heaven. A stranger who used to be a customer at my job took me aside once and told me she has seen my journey over the years and is so proud of me. She started crying and gave me a hug. I wish I could tell her how much that meant to me. I had something similar. I had a customer that I've known for probably 8 years now, across 2 jobs. I worked at a convenience store. He always stopped in to get coffee, and then I switched jobs to women's clothing retail, and it turns out he picks things up for his wife and himself from there regularly. Well, I went back to school and recently got a job in my new field, but I went back to talk to my old boss, and that customer came in. We talked about what was happening in our lives. He recently retired, so he no longer goes to the convenience store for coffee, and when I talked about my stuff, he said how awesome it was and that he was so happy for me. Made me feel so good. It was so cool to have the chance to close out such a long time of seeing each other at work. It means so much to know that people are taking note of you, even when you don't really know them. I had just moved to a new town and had started a brand new job at a high school a few towns over. I lived 40 minutes away from my work and it was the first day of school for students. I went to start my car that morning and it wouldn't turn on. The engine had died. I had no way of getting to work and I started to panic. I wanted to make a good impression at my new school and it was my first professional job out of college. There was no way I would be able to find coverage in time, and it was the first day for students and a brand new job for me. Not a good look if I didn't show up. I didn't know anyone yet to call, and this was before Uber was around. One of my new neighbors, who was retired and also up super early walking their dog, saw me outside of my car on the verge of a meltdown. They insisted on driving me to work that morning. They refused money for gas. They didn't let me feel guilty about the distance or the situation and told me they were so happy to help BC they didn't have anything else going on that day. I was able to make it to my new job on time and everything else fell into place that day. I later found out that they were actually in the middle of a big move and were in the process of moving across the country that week since they had just retired. I still get emotional thinking about that morning and the overabundant kindness shown to me that day. I hope to be this way when I retire. Well, I was bored and didn't have any plans, so why not? I'll help you out. When I was in my early 20s, I ran out of gas 2 blocks from a gas station and had no money. A man came up to my car with a jug of gas and filled my car for me. I asked him for a way to pay him back and he said, "I have a daughter your age and I know how hard it is. Merry Christmas." And he walked away. I will always remember this man. So nice, so giving. Back in 2016, I had just started a new job, but wanted to visit my girlfriend in Nashville. I drove 6 hours to get there on my first weekend off, and I timed it just right so I'd haven't first paycheck deposited to my account for the return journey's gas. Well, something went wrong with the deposit form and I ended up having to wait a week to get paid, meaning I had about $5 in my bank account, and that wasn't gonna cut it for the gas prices home. Add to this, I realized my phone hadn't charged properly the night before and I was about to be driving blind. I had a big cup of quarters, my only cash, enough to buy a full tank of gas and a car voltage converter for a phone charger. But the gas station clerk wouldn't take the quarters because of policy. I had $20 of quarters. The lady behind me took me at my word and gave me $20 for my cup of quarters. Said we need quarters anyway. I made it home safely and ate leftover ramen the rest of the week till I got paid. A guy in France, I asked for directions. Not only he walked me to the place, but he also kept me company and chatted while I visited it. He left after 15 minutes though because he had an appointment. Sounds like the setup to take an LOL. So many of these things have me vacillating wildly between oh how lovely and good way to get murdered. When I was working as a cashier, an older man pulled out $1 and asked if I wanted to see something cool. Slightly skeptical, I said sure. He folded it into a little shoe and gave it to me and it was the cutest thing. Then he told me, well you can't just have one shoe, and folded another into a second shoe and I still have them on my desk because I didn't have it in me to unfold them. Come on, op, we gotta see the shoes. I ran out of gas on a dirt road in New Mexico. No one around and miles from town. A guy picked me up, drove me to the gas station and then all the way back out to my truck. He also refused money when I offered it and said just make sure you help someone when they need it. This is a twist on the Today You, Tomorrow Me story. Maybe he's the original Today You, Tomorrow Me guy, or it's a continuation of that same story. Not me but my sister. She got severely sunburned while on holidays in Sri Lanka. We thought she was feeling better as she spent the whole previous day in bed. We went on a trip to a waterfall in the jungle. We were friends with locals who brought us. After swimming in the water, her skin starts burning to the point where she is in tears and won't let anyone touch her. We have nothing to help her. Maybe 5 minutes later, some local villagers appear with aloe vera plants and proceed to gently rub it onto her skin. Total strangers who saw the situation went to their house and brought the aloe vera. It was so kind I couldn't believe it. We ended up talking to them and they made us all dinner which we ate together from a bucket in the middle of the jungle. Unforgettable. Radiation burns hurt. Many years ago, when my brother and I were traveling to Finland on a whim and most places were booked out, a Finnish student we encountered and asked for a youth hostel spontaneously let us sleep in her dorm's living room for a few days. She even gave up her own dorm room for us and stayed at her estranged husband's place. She showed us around, bought us some typical Finnish food and sweets, and was just incredibly nice towards two naive foreigners. We stayed in contact for a bit until she went abroad, and sadly I never managed to find her again. This was before Facebook and she had a very common name, but I hope she knows how much I appreciated her kindness. Whoa, I'm from Finland and that just makes me really happy to hear that people have positive experiences with my people. Lomeo. D. I had a relationship go south and I ended up taking our 10-year anniversary trip to a foreign country alone. I met a local in one of the cities I stayed in and she hung out with me all day, showed me the lay of the land, bought me a couple beers, and gave me a smooch at the end of the day. She was cool. Was spending a summer in Vancouver. I was doing some food shopping with my girlfriend, but we both weren't sure if we'd been paid yet. Got to the till with all our stuff, $100 worth, and as you can expect both our cards got declined. As I was apologizing to the cashier, a woman behind us walked right up and stuck her card in the machine. I tried to tell her there was no need, but she insisted, saying someone did something really nice for me today, and I'm just paying it forward. Was so stunned by this. Tried to get her details to pay her back, but she just smiled, said it was nothing and went on her way. One of the kindest things anyone has ever done for me. Thank you, random Canadian lady. Thank you. I was in Paris and got into a huge fight with someone I cared about. We bolted in different directions. I jumped on a crowded metro headed for my hotel and wept. Many people stared, but one dear woman fished a tissue out of her purse for me. It was really simple, but it meant a lot. I was in an airport once during a particularly difficult time in my life, sobbing my eyes out on the phone to my mom. When I first sat down it was a quiet area, but I guess a plane disembarked and a bunch of people walked by. Two separate women wordlessly handed me tissues as they walked by. It meant so much at the time. I had been sent to live in temporary housing out of state by California Social Services. It turned out to be a hoarder den meth house. I posted about the house on TikTok and gained a lot of followers. One of the followers, a total stranger, offered to help and drove 3 states away to rescue myself and the dog who had adopted me. She is currently helping me navigate her state's social services programs in order to help me get my own housing. I will always appreciate her. Why would social services place you in a place like that? That's pretty messed up. I was traveling one time and full of anxiety. I had to catch a plane later that day, but had to take 2 trains to get to the city whence it was leaving. I was alone in a foreign country with no friendly faces. Then I overheard this one woman at the train stop where I was waiting, speaking a similar language to mine, and I sort of latched onto her the whole way to my next stop. When we got there, I didn't know where to go, so she helped me find the right platform. We were told that the departure of the train I was supposed to take had to be delayed. I freaked out. The woman helped me find the help desk and get the information I needed in case the train left too late for me to get to the airport on time. But not only that, she also gave me €250 in case I had to buy a new ticket. This woman was a complete stranger and she just handed me hundreds of dollars. The train ended up leaving like 10 minutes behind schedule, and I was so scared I wouldn't make it that I was reluctant to board. But she assured me it would be okay and convinced me to get on. The travel agency helped me out by contacting the airport and had them hold the plane for me. I made it onto the plane. But if it hadn't been for this woman, I might have ended up stranded in a big city, in a foreign country with no money. I was eating gelato in Florence, peak tourist season, plus there was a heat wave, and I was kind of a mess. Just as I finish, some random shopkeeper offers me her hand and indicates for me to follow her. In my horrible Italian, I tell her no thank you and I don't speak Italian. She is adamant and so I figure I'll go. She leads me to this tiny bathroom, which she unlocked for me, and gestures for me to wash my hands. I cried. I'd been traveling alone in Europe for like 2 weeks, living out of my backpack and sleeping on couches and buses. It was such a simple act of kindness, but I will never forget it. Gelato in Florence is ducking incredible. I had a Ferrero Rocher flavor one which I'll never forget and was one of my peak memories. The first time I had to move for college, I went to the nearest city and took a train that would have taken me to the city in which I was going to live. The train stopped halfway and wasn't going anywhere for the rest of the day, due to a strike, so I was stuck there. Some random guy then said to me, "Hey, my sister is coming in a minute. We are going back to city I was coming from. Do you need a ride? I accepted against better judgment. But he was really nice. Didn't even ask me to pay for gas or anything like that. Brought me back to the city and pointed me to some buses I could take. The hilarious part was calling my mum telling her I was in some stranger's car about 3 hours after getting out of her house. My 4 kids, husband and I were traveling to see family and stopped at a Red Robin for dinner. While waiting for a table, a gentleman next to us sneezed and I said bless you without thinking about it. We were shown our table shortly after and we ate our dinner. When the bill came, the waitress told us our bill had been paid for by someone who appreciated the blessing I gave him and wanted to give us one back. When I was little I didn't understand taxes and I bought a giant ice cream cone, and when I went to pay they said more than I had. And I was like, what are taxes? And the lady behind me, who obviously had a lot of stuff to buy, bought my ice cream for me. She was really cool in my opinion. TBH, the system makes no sense. In EU the prices written on the product is what you actually have to pay. My daughters and I were living in a homeless shelter after leaving my abusive ex. The shelter rules were that we couldn't be in the building between 8 AM and 3 PM. So every day I'd strap the kids in the stroller the shelter had given me and we'd either walk to the library, the park, or Walmart. Each of the 3 was at least a mile away. One day it was raining pretty hard and I really didn't want to walk that far in the rain, so I went into a diner that was close by. I had about $100 to my name and I really didn't want to be spending it in a restaurant, but I also really didn't want to be outside in the pouring rain with my kids. I found a cheap $8 meal on the menu and ordered it and took my sweet time slowly dividing it out and feeding it to my kids while watching the window to see if the rain would let up soon. Partway through, a woman who had just finished her meal came and said she had some towels in her car and asked if I'd accept them. I said yes and she went out to her car after paying for her food. She ended up getting in her car and driving away, and I just thought, okay, guess she didn't have them in her car after all. Well, she came back about 10 minutes later and handed me 2 brand new towels. I wrapped each kid up in one and thanked her. Then not long after, another stranger, a man this time, came over and without a word put a $10 bill on my table before he went to the counter to pay for his own meal and left. I don't know if either of them had figured out we were homeless or if they just could tell something was wrong. But those 2 acts of kindness meant so much to me and made such a huge difference in terms of my being able to feel like things would be okay. 2 friends and I broke down 3 hours from home. Walked to a gas station, but we were broke so didn't really have a plan. Couldn't afford a mechanic or tow or hotel. We were high schoolers who snuck away to a college party. No one wanted to call home and get in trouble. At the gas station 2 young hippies are eating donuts, so we approach them and ask for a ride back to our car. I guess we were hoping it magically fixed itself. They agree and insist on staying while we check it out in case we were stranded again. Turns out they were fish fans and following a tour. It was a little out of their way, but they drove us back and dropped us off right at our doors. We listened to fish the whole way while they rolled joint after joint. It was awesome and they seemed happy to do it. Eventually I had to tell my mom the truck broke down while I was lost and somehow it ended up at a tow yard 3 hours away. Weird. I was in a toy store with my 2 young kids who were both throwing a fit because they wanted a toy. We were there to buy a birthday present for someone else. I was exhausted and sickened at my wits' end. They wouldn't listen to me, so I just started ignoring them and tried to grab a gift as fast as I could. A lady who I'd say was in her 50s came up to me, looked me in the eye and said, I just want to tell you something. I know you probably don't hear this enough, but I want you to know you're a really good mother. I instantly started crying and gave her a hug. I didn't know it at the time, but I really needed that. What a simple gesture to brighten sometimes day. This was about 5 years ago and I still think about it. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.